It happened. I got smoked by Amazon. Not my brightest day, that's for sure. But let's talk about it. And I'm gonna skip my intro because you guys will just laugh at me if I say I help you land jobs in big tech, and here I am talking about how I got destroyed by Amazon, right? But anyway, look, we can all learn from stuff. I learned a lot from this, and I hope you do too. I'm gonna be completely candid here. This is actually not scripted or anything like that. I have a few bullet points, that's about it. And yeah, I just want to talk openly and honestly with all of you about this. So let's do it. Okay, so let's start with the timeline. Now here's the thing. I'm gonna be very honest. I got smoked, like I already said. So no excuses here about that. Like, I wasn't prepared, and we'll get into all that. But starting out with the timeline, this was the actual interview that I got destroyed by took place in December 2020. This was before I did well in the Microsoft interviews. This was before I passed Google technical interviews. And, I was honestly like a noob, but we'll get into that. We'll get into all of that. So starting out with when I applied. I think I applied in September of 2020. And I was actually applying for a winter internship. So 2021 was going to have a winter internship. And this was actually going to work out perfectly, so I thought, with my schedule, because I was also trying to get, summer internships. I also had the opportunity to graduate, and I could kind of choose. So basically my plan was to get the Amazon internship in winter, then in spring, because I was on the quarter system, take 16 credits, then do a summer internship, and then return for a fall term to do 16 credits then as well. So that was my master plan. It was going to be 2 big tech internships, at least that was the hope, that was the prayer, and finish up my degree in December and basically have my pick, right? So that was the plan. So I'm applying for this Amazon winter internship. So it starts out with, they send me the online assessment. And I'm not sure if they still do it like this anymore, but at the time it was pretty lengthy and it was done in 3 parts. And so the first part is like a debugging session. So what they do is they give you 7 questions and they ask you to try to debug them. And you have to use Java or C++. And I was kind of rusty on those. I hadn't really done Java. I had done some C++ when I was first learning to code, and so that's what I chose. But I really was hoping that it was going to be in Python, because that's what I was doing most of my work in at the time. But anyway, it's not too bad. It's just 7 questions. I think you get 20 minutes maybe. And basically what you're doing is finding the little bugs in the coding problem that they give you. So it could be it's supposed to be, a less than sign and they had a greater than sign, or it's supposed to be they would do the Boolean operators wrong. So it might be they do an or, but it's really supposed to be an and. Stuff like that, little things. And I didn't get all 7 of those, but I did get, a good amount and enough to move to the next section. Now that's actually been debated. I don't really know if they just automatically give you part 2 and 3 of the OA, or if it's based on your performance. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I got the second portion, and this is the typical online assessment. This was 2 coding questions. I think one was easy, one was medium, and these weren't bad at all. So I got through those, and I was feeling pretty good about them. Maybe I didn't do them exactly perfectly, but I thought that I probably did well enough. I think you get 90 minutes to do those 2 problems, and that was pretty standard, what you would think of as a normal online assessment. And then the third part was actually pretty annoying, to be honest. It was a 3-hour session, and I was this is classic Amazon here. It was basically okay, they give you a scenario, and so you're a software engineer on the Amazon team, and you have a deadline that's in 3 weeks, and you're already feeling a bit stressed about it. But then your other teammate comes to you, and they have a deadline that's in 3 days, and they want your help on this project because they're really stressed and they're against the wall, and it'll be a multiple choice, what should you do? Should you just abandon them and no can do, I got my own work to do, or should you be a good teammate and help them in whatever capacity you could? So it was kind of dumb stuff like that, and it was 3 hours long. It didn't actually take the whole time. You probably finish fairly early. I mean, I finished with, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half left or something like that. And I've heard of other people finishing this thing in 30 minutes, because the other stuff is going to be analyzing some SQL maybe or something like that, or finding another bug or 2. And you're basically just working through these scenarios and showing that you're a good human being. That's kind of what it is, and that you have some good problem solving skills. And so that one wasn't bad at all, and I finished all 3 parts of the OA, I think over 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And then it was the waiting game. And so they got back to me in a few weeks and they said, okay, you have passed the OA. We would like to set up the onsite. Now, I do onsite in quotes because this was COVID time. And so they said onsite, but it was really going to be just like another call over video with a shared coding platform. And so there are actually two different types of interviews you can get at this stage, from what I've heard at least. And one of them is like, you basically just absolutely destroyed the online assessment. I don't know what else goes into that. Like it might be due to like your resume, like what your projects you have and stuff like that. But essentially like they're pretty sure from what you've shown them so far, like the signal you've given them, that you are going to be like a beast in the program and that they definitely want you as an intern. And so you could get a technical interview, which is just like going over one or two of the questions that you did in the online assessment. And I wanted that so badly, but I must have, not done a perfect online assessment, not crushed it like too much because I didn't get that one. So I got like an actual question. And that's the other type of interview that you can get for the internship. It's just one onsite and they give you an actual coding question as well as like some behavioral stuff. And so I had been like prepping, technical interview prepping for a while now, but I hadn't gone super hard. And so I had set this up for myself where I was doing like 1 to 2 questions a day, months prior to this, but life would happen and I would fall off the wagon. I wouldn't prep for a while or something like that. And it was always in the back of my mind because that's what I decided to do. Like I put my eggs in the technical interview prep basket. And so like I would prepare and I was kind of starting to get over the hump, but I hadn't exploded yet. So that's what I tell people, that there's a learning curve to the technical interview, right? And once you get past a certain point, it just explodes and it opens up and you start just being able to solve like mediums or even hards like on your own, like within like a reasonable amount of time. And it's just insane how that happens, like just all at once seemingly. And so that had not happened for me yet. I was still like basically question dependent. And so if I got a question that like I really knew, then I could obviously do it. But that's anybody, right? But if I didn't, it was still hard for me to kind of solve like brand new questions that I had never seen before. So around this time, I decided to spring for LeetCode Premium. And that's because I wanted to use like the Explore page and do Amazon specific questions. And so that's what I was doing. And that's how I was trying to prepare. But I really didn't have like that long to do this. My interview was in December. I want to say I finished the OA like late November. I think I only had like a couple weeks to try to like prepare for this, which is pretty standard, but I was also still in my classes and everything. And like, I just didn't get to do as many problems as I really should have. And I also like didn't have that fire under myself. Like I think I was feeling myself a little too much, that I was like a little bit better at these problems than I really was at the time. And so that was like a cool reality check as well. And that's definitely something I learned from this situation. But anyway, we get to the day of the interview and I'll start out with the thing that actually went well. And that is the behavioral portion of the interview. And so I'll actually like make a video about this in the future, talking more about like how to nail the behavioral questions. But as far as this video goes, I'll just talk about how it went in this specific interview. So I had actually started planning for these behavioral questions months in advance. And so I thought that I might be able to work at one of these big tech companies one day. At least that was my dream early on in trying to get this computer science degree. And so in thinking about that, Amazon was one of my top choices just because it's in FANG or whatever else, right? And so I heard about their leadership principles. And what I did was I made a doc listing out all the leadership principles. And as things would come up in like my life, like my journey towards computer science, like whether that was like hackathons or like team projects or whatever it was, I would actually go into this doc and fill in like those different scenarios, literally prepping for these behavioral interview questions, especially because the Amazon leadership principles really span into other companies as well. And so like if you can, I think there are 14 of them, if you can nail down like a great story for all 14 of those, you're likely going to be able to answer pretty much any behavioral question that comes up in your other interviews as well. And so I actually would go back to this doc often. In this interview, I read it over beforehand and I had it like pretty much ready. And so when he asked me the behavioral questions, I honestly destroyed that part because I had like a nice STAR method. If you haven't heard of the STAR method, I'll link like a cool video in the description about like how to go about using the STAR method. And I would use the STAR method that I had already prepared for these behavioral questions. And so it started out great. My interviewer seemed to like give me good feedback and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is going pretty well. Then game the coding question. And man, this is when I really wish that I had done more prep. But actually in the moment, I was pretty naive. So I got a tree question. He asked me something very simple about it, like about the input. And I hadn't done trees like really at all. I had just like kind of seen them in data structures, like really from like a fundamental sense into like building the data structure. So he was asking me something so simple about the input. And I had no idea what he meant. And I thought I was answering his question, but I absolutely was not. Like, now that I've done a bunch of tree questions, I know that that was so dumb, what I was trying to say. And so what's really funny about it is, what I didn't know is the interview was pretty much over already, right there. Like, when I couldn't answer that super basic question, I tell you right now, this guy was like, absolutely not. Like, I had already failed it and I had no idea. So eventually he just says, okay, it's fine, just go ahead with the problem. We spent like 5 to 7 minutes on trying to help me answer that question correctly. And he's like, just go ahead with the problem. So I do the whole plan, like whatever, and I'm trying to go through the problem. And I actually thought that I was getting it right. And so I kept like coding it up. And my solution, to be honest, wasn't bad. Like, especially because my input was like super weird. My solution wasn't horrible. I did actually solve the problem, but it wasn't optimal and it was just like really sloppy and messy. So I go through the whole problem and I'm like debugging it. I actually caught like an error or two. So he was actually happy about that. So I thought that that was pretty cool. I was like, all right, you know, I'm doing well in this thing. And then I had chance at the end to ask my questions. And so I'm asking him questions about the internship and work-life balance and whatever else. Like, I had prepared this in advance. And he's telling me all about it, and he's telling it to me like pretty excited, and like he tells me, oh yeah, and I'll be getting back to you in 2 days with the feedback, like you'll hear back very soon. And I was thinking to myself like, wow, he's really taking the time to answer my questions, like I must have nailed this. And you know, they're gonna come back to me in 2 days and tell me 100% like, welcome to Amazon. And the reality was that it was going to be so fast because he knew for a fact that I was in no hire. And so in hindsight, it's just really funny to think about, you know, what he was thinking. And I could actually hear now, like on some of the questions he asked, like I could hear the disappointment in his voice and the look on his face at some of the answers that I gave. And he just wanted me to do better than I did. And so the interview ends and I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay, I have like 2 days and I'm gonna hear back, and I'm praying for good news. I'm believing for good news. At least what I thought was good news, right? Like, God has different plans and they're always better. So I was praying for what I thought was good news, which was a yes from Amazon. And I'm nervous, obviously. Like, I'm still nervous about this. This is gonna be like my first like big tech opportunity, and I didn't want to blow it. And I just like, I wanted it to come through and like be amazing. And I'll never forget, like, I actually had a dream that I got it. I had a dream that I got the email and I was into Amazon. And I was just like, I woke up and I was like, oh no, that was a dream. But I was like, you know what? That's gonna be my reality. Like today or tomorrow, whenever I had the dream. I'm gonna get the email and that's gonna be my reality. And then the email came. And I'll never forget it. I was in my parents' house, in my room. God bless them for letting me come back to do my degree at their house. And this room is where I did like most of my coding journey up to that point. And I get the email, I see it, and I'm standing like right next to my bed. And I'm like, here it is, here we go. Open it up. You know, we regret to inform you, I hit that line. And I just dropped to my knees. Like, I just fell to the ground. I was devastated by this. I couldn't believe it. You know, I couldn't like catch my breath at the time. I was so disappointed. I went over to the corner of the room and I just like sat in this chair. I mean, I asked God like, why was it happening? I wasn't angry with him. I just really was asking why. And, you know, it took me a second, and I still said to him, you know, God, I know that your plan is better than mine. You have something else for me, something better. And that was actually true. But at the time, it was really hard to see that. So I was just really upset. Thank God I had an amazing support system. I talked to my parents about it. I talked to my family about it. And they were very supportive, just saying, hey, one door closes, another one's going to open, you know, don't sweat it. And honestly, guys, I needed this, right? I needed that support in that moment. And I honestly needed this failure too. This was my first big interview. and I bombed it so bad. I actually went and looked up the question on LeetCode just to see what it was like, and I realized I had made a grave mistake on the question, and it totally made sense why I didn't get it, right? So it was all on me, but that lit a fire under me. I started really grinding and taking my prep seriously, and I got over that hump and I did explode, and I started to just get really good at these. And then, a week later or something like that, Microsoft called, and then a couple weeks after that, Google called, and I was like, here we go. These are the opportunities that I've been waiting for. I got those interviews scheduled in January, so literally a month later, crushed Microsoft, and a few weeks after that, did the Google interviews. So it really worked out. And I got a beautiful time in the fall. Instead of 16 credits to finish up my degree, I just had one easy elective to finish up. And honestly, that was just such a nice, restful time in my life, like before the calm, before the storm, before starting this new job and this new career, to just relax and decongest and all of that, right? And the other thing is that I don't think I was ready in January to go do an Amazon internship. I mean, I've heard that they're just extremely rigorous and competitive and everything, and I think that I just wouldn't have been in the right mental space and the right technical prowess to have handled that straight away in January. And I might have just created a bad mental headspace around this career and not really been a fan of it anymore. And so God obviously knew what the deal was. He knew the better plan, but at the time it was tough pill to swallow. But what I learned from it is that failure is necessary on the path to success. And that is really what we should be chasing. We should be chasing failure, because that means that we're putting ourselves out there and we are really going for it and we're trying to be great. So look, don't let the failures get you down. They got me down for a few weeks, but I used them to fuel the fire in order to go out and achieve something greater than I thought was possible. And so if you fail, look, it's okay. That's why I wanted to share my story. And that's why I wanted to make the point that it was completely my fault that I failed, right? Nobody else to blame. I can't say oh, I killed the interview, but my interviewer just didn't like me. No, it was on me completely. And that is okay. That is part of what makes me who I am today. And so yes, I got destroyed by Amazon. They completely rejected me. And it was a sad day in my life, but I'm so grateful for that experience, and I really appreciate you listening to me share my story. I really hope you got something out of it, and if you did, please drop me a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below about your interview experience, whether it's a failure or a success. I want to hear about it. Everybody else wants to hear about it too. Let's all share our stories. But for now, that's it for me. And remember, we'll all make it together. Just gotta keep praying.